leading French tech company. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to speak in English because that's the rule here. And the first thing I would like to do is to congratulate TheFamily for the switch that they did about a year ago to decide that all presentations here will be in English. Obviously, it's not easy for many of the speakers, and it's not easy for many of the audience. I don't know tonight how well you speak English. But let me tell you, if you want to speak tech entrepreneurship language, you better speak English, and you better speak it well. And it's going to make a huge difference. And if there is one thing you need to remember from tonight, that's the one. Go practice your English. Go back, spend your vacation in the US or in England. By the way, two very different English. But this being said, I'm actually going to start in French. Pour moi, l'entrepreneur, c'est un révolutionnaire. And I need to say this in French because the word entrepreneur is actually much stronger in French than in English. And the word révolutionnaire is also much stronger in French than in English. But really, fundamentally, to be an entrepreneur is to have the idea that this world could be even better with something a little bit different or something radically new. Any entrepreneur, and this is as true for Zuckerberg or Elon Musk as it is for the guy or the woman opening a bakery at the corner of the street. They both have the same idea that with what they're doing in the world will be a better place. And also that they will make money. Most entrepreneurs that I have met, and most successful entrepreneurs that are successful on the long term, foremost think about how they're changing the world. And second, think about how they're going to make money. And when you're successful, you end up making money if you pay a little bit of attention. So, the game tonight is I'm going to speak a little bit about myself. I come from a lineage of entrepreneurs. My father was an entrepreneur, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. Actually, my great-grandfather came from Alsace when he was 15 years old to make a fortune in Paris. And we're talking here at the beginning of the last century, the 20th century. And I actually think that I got very lucky because there's a lot of things that I didn't really need to learn, or that I learned I was so young that they were really ingrained in me. So I am a serial entrepreneur. I love it. I myself started 3 companies. Internet Way in 1994 was an internet access provider. I sold it to the worldwide leader in 97. I stayed there for another 3 years. And then in 2000 was the dot-com burst, a little bit of a flat period. I started another company in 2003 called Bizanga. It was software for large telcos and ISPs. At the time in 2003, there was a lot of spam in mailbox to a point that we don't really remember today because that's a problem that's been solved. But in 2003, it was a real problem. And the software that we designed allowed ISP to actually trash 95% of the email they received for the end users, because 95% of it was pure spam. And what they delivered to the end user, and this is still the case today, what they delivered to the end user is about the 5% that remains. So when you receive spam in your mailbox, it's within that 5% that didn't get caught by the anti-spam. But honestly, today there's so little spam. And I sold it to the worldwide leader in 2010. And then the third company is Scality, which we started the project in 2008. We actually created the company, the legal shell, in 2009 as a subsidiary of Bizanga. We saw that the potential for Scality was much bigger than Bizanga, so we found a way to sell Bizanga, buy back what is now Scality, and grow Scality. And as Lisa said, or was it the previous person? We have raised $92 million. And really the way I think of all this money that we've raised is that it's a responsibility. We are taking the responsibility to make money for our investors much, much more than $92 million. Every dollar that we take is a responsibility to give back more money to our investors. So what have I learned in more than 20 years of entrepreneurship? The first thing is persistence. You know, to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be a little bit stubborn. You're going to meet many people who tell you that what you're about to do is impossible. You're going to meet many people who are skeptical, who tell you that what you're doing has never been done, to tell you that you're doing it the wrong way. And you need to be stubborn, and not only stubborn, but the one thing that still surprises me after 20 years is how much work it demands. It's just crazy. And if you're not ready for that, do a different job. I mean, there are many, many great jobs. But the job of being an entrepreneur, to being one of the founders of a company, there's just no limit to how much you need to work. And it always comes at the wrong moment in your life. And the truly frustrating thing is that the few moments that you don't quite work, just not quite enough, well, you're losing that contract that could have made a difference. You're losing that investor meeting that could have made a difference. So, lesson number one is really about persistence, both in terms of being a little bit stubborn and in terms of sheer hard work. Lesson number two is choose your market. There's no bigger sin for a startup company than to go after a market that doesn't exist and will not exist. You cannot repair that. You can work as much as you want. You can have the best mentors. You can have the best shareholders. You can have as much money as you want. If you're trying to target a market that doesn't exist, and when I say a market that doesn't exist, obviously the Uber market didn't exist before Uber. No one knew there was a market there. But there was a pent-up demand. When they started, it met the demand pretty quickly. When I say a market that doesn't exist, is even when you release your product, your MVP, your first barely viable product, if it doesn't meet a desire in the market, then there's just nothing you can do. And so sometimes we can pivot. This is what Criteo did. They launched a product, and then the second one, and it's really the third product based on the same technology that was a hit. But if they had stayed on the first or the second product, Criteo would not be a company that we know about today. You have to meet the market, and that market needs to be big. And when you raise money, if you're going to raise money from venture capital or from business angel, you need to raise money in proportion to the market that you address. If you're in Silicon Valley and you're going to talk in tens of millions of dollars, because that's the language of Silicon Valley, you need a market that is in billions of dollars. And truly, if your market is less than 500 million, don't go to Silicon Valley. France is big enough to address a market that is 500 million. I mean, there are 65 or 70 million consumers in France, and the country is pretty rich. Now, you're not going to build a multi-billion-dollar company. You are not going to build a Criteo if you stay in France. But there are many successes, and again, there are many very good bakeries in France. These are a success. They change the world in their neighborhood. It matters. But if you're going after the big game, and if you want to play the big game, you need a market that is in billions of dollars. And I can tell you that when you're at the beginning of a company, it's actually not so easy to identify, because you're creating something that doesn't exist. Think about Apple. We all rave about the success of the iPhone. How many iPhones are there in the room? I see a few recording right now. Okay, but I personally believe that the iPhone would not have been possible without the Newton. And the Newton was a total flop. Okay? But you need some iterations. And when Newton was launched, apart from the fact that Steve Jobs was not in Apple, and so he didn't have the right design and the right marketing, but also there was not enough processing power, there was not enough mobile network to make this product a success. So the minimal viable product couldn't meet the demand. It was just a toy. On the contrary, when the iPhone was launched, it quickly met a market. And it was the right thing to do, to stop producing the Newton. It would have never worked. There was just not enough in that product to make a market. But I personally believe it would have been difficult to predict at the time. The third thing is choose your people. This is the most important thing. Especially choose your co-founders. Do not start a startup alone. It's really tough. It's going to be a bumpy ride. I don't know one startup that succeeded just as a linear ride. It's bumpy, it's hard. You win some days, you lose some other days. And it's fine, but you need to be able to share with someone. And you're stronger, especially if you're a little bit different, and still work together and believe in it together. So persistence, in the sense of being stubborn, and in the sense of sheer work, choosing your market, choosing the people. And the fourth one is actually can appear as contradicting the first one, but it's critical. Be open, listen, talk, communicate. Be open to being wrong. One of the good rules in a startup is fail fast. Experiment, try things. Identify that you went in the wrong direction and change and change and change again until you have the right recipe. And this really takes being not afraid to take a decision, and 2 weeks later, because you have a new set of information, maybe some conversations with people who have experience in your field, you decide it was the wrong decision, and you change again. Now, the bigger the startup, the less you can change like this every day, because you're going to embark more and more people with you, and when you get to a point where you are several hundred people, if you change every day, you don't understand where you're going. So you need to point in the direction. But when you're 5, 6, 10, 12 in an office, just gather everyone and change every time that is needed. Communication is very key in everything. And maybe one of my mistakes was to sometime, at least at the beginning of my career, to not communicate enough with people. I was very proud of being a very good communicator until I did my first 360. 360 is when a coach asks the people who work with you how they see you. And I was so convinced that I was the best communicator in the world. And through the 360, I discovered that I was a disaster at communication. Actually, I discovered that I was a very bad CEO. I had already been a CEO for 3 years. And that's when I started learning being a CEO. The other thing is trust yourself. And again, this is super difficult. You need to trust yourself. That's why I was talking about being stubborn. And at the same time, listen. But one of the mistakes I have done repeatedly is to not trust myself. This was one of my biggest mistakes when I took Bizanga to the US. We had enough funding to do this. We had just won a $5 million contract in the US. So I felt, okay, we've got that big contract, we've got that anchor customer, let's go. And people so much told me that the US is different than France, which is true. It's a very different culture. I thought, okay, I need someone who's local to do it. And I recruited a general manager, because I didn't trust that I could do it myself. Biggest mistake. Obviously, it was a good idea to recruit some people in the US, but it was a bad idea to not trust myself and to recruit a general manager. I would have been much better recruiting a team and training the team and communicating directly with the team. So the exercise that I was offered was to talk about some failures. So some of them are quite personal, actually. If I look back, I think that my biggest failure is that when I made money, when I was 31 years old, I sold Internet Way, and I made 18 million, oh, I can't speak this in English, 18 million francs, 18 millions francs. Okay, it was a lot of money at the time. And I just didn't know how to manage my own money. Back then I was pretty good at managing a company and growing a company. Internet Way did about $80 million in revenue. It was a pretty big company, but I couldn't manage my money. I lost most of my money in the dot-com afterwards, in dot-com burst. I got scared several times, and every time I got scared, I made mistakes. So again, back to trust yourself. And the other mistake that I made repeatedly is to keep in the company some people who were not performing, and I kept them out of the loyalty to the people, but it was actually several times a bad thing for the company. And as a CEO, your loyalty should go to the company first and to the people second. Your role as a CEO is to take care of the great concern of the company, which is a moral entity. And so several times I did not let go people that I should have let go. And obviously it's hard. And this is something to learn, how you can separate from someone in a way that is respectable and amicable. I'll tell you that the truth is when someone is not performing in a job, it's actually better for that person to be let go. Because it's not satisfactory for an individual to be in a role and not be successful. So as hard as it is, it's the right thing to do if someone's not successful, to separate. I'd like to speak a little bit about US and France. I've been living between France and San Francisco since 1989. When I'm here, people tell me that I live in San Francisco, and when I'm in San Francisco, they tell me, like my son tells me that I live in Paris. And the truth is that I've been traveling between both countries pretty much every 6 weeks for the past 15 years. So the first thing to say is that the cultures are very different. You're going to master English now that you have heard my advice. And once you go and master English, you'll think, okay, well, it's the same. I mean, it's the same McDonald's and the same TV series, and the cars kind of look the same, most of them at least. There's a little bit less Renault and Peugeot, but for the rest, it's about the same thing. But the truth is the cultures, and specifically the business cultures, are very different. And wherever you go in the world, when you want to do business, you better adapt yourself to the culture where you're going. It's not really true for tourism as well, and it's true if you want to meet people. So when you're out there, you better make an effort to adapt to the culture. You know, one of the things, for example, is that in France, it's pretty common to ask someone to basically go out for lunch to meet. This is completely unacceptable in Silicon Valley culture. You can ask anyone to meet if you have an ask, but you better have something to ask. You don't just take time of someone just to meet them. Now, conversely, you can pretty much ask anyone to meet and you'll get a meeting. Maybe a 15-minute meeting, a half-an-hour meeting, but if you have a real reason to meet a person and you're qualified, you'll get the meeting. Well, in France, you're probably not going to get the meeting. So it's a very different behavior. That's just an example, but there are many. But the one big difference that I see in Silicon Valley is that there's no limit to the ambition. If I have one sorrow about France, is that the culture, the ecosystem, still limits the entrepreneur's ambition. Don't raise too much money, you're taking too much risk. I have heard that so many times. maybe you should start locally and think about expanding later. I mean, in many, many different ways. And honestly, I understand where it comes from. French VCs have lost a lot of money for many years. And there are not enough exit of French-born companies. So they're a little bit worried that if you're going to spend tens of millions of dollars, you're not going to find an exit to pay them back. So I understand where it comes from, but it has a really huge impact on startups here. And I think it would be better for startups to have more ambition. And that's what you find when you go to Silicon Valley. You start thinking differently because everyone around you thinks with no limit to their ambition, to the point of sometimes being irrational, unreasonable, but that's the culture there. And some make it. Now, the one thing I want to also say is, some people believe that there's more money in Silicon Valley. So it's true that there's more money in Silicon Valley, but there's also more startups. And it's actually more difficult to raise money in Silicon Valley than it is to raise here. So as any general statement like this, you can point me to some exceptions, and I know them, but generally speaking, it's actually easier to raise money here in France than it is in Silicon Valley. The competition is fierce, it's incredible, it's tense. Okay? But that's also survival of the fittest. If you survive there, you make it big. And for anyone who's in IT here, and there's quite a few of you since some of you are coming from 42, if you want to make it big in IT, it's a good place to be. And what I recommend to entrepreneurs is make your initial product here, test the product market fit, check that there is a market. Once you have all this, just jump and go over there. And when I say jump and go over there, you better send at least one of the founders there. Let me remind you that there's 9-hour time difference between Paris and San Francisco. It's a complete nightmare. I pretty much have to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Otherwise, I don't have overlap with my team in Paris. I'd like to say a couple words to people who sometimes get criticized, and I think they're doing an amazing work, so I want them to be mentioned tonight. First, La French Tech. Sometimes people say that La French Tech is just a name, it's just a trend, a fashion. La French Tech is very fundamental. The fact that we just put a label on this entrepreneurship movement in France is a huge thing. One of the things that Americans do very well is marketing. And in France, we still think that spending money on marketing is wasting money. I fully disagree with that statement. And putting a label on all the entrepreneurs, the technology entrepreneurs, that are coming from France and work all around the world, has allowed us to identify ourselves and realize that we're not alone. So basically, 18 years of my career, I thought I was the only entrepreneur in France. Until La French Tech came along, and I met literally over 100 entrepreneurs that were asking the same questions, facing the same problems, and now I have a network of friends that can help me. And we help each other, and we motivate each other. So this La French Tech, it's great for the network. It's also great because the larger society in France is getting awareness about entrepreneurship. When I did an engineering school and I went to the Bureau des élèves and said I was going to create a company, the guy said I was crazy, I should go work for a bank. I think that things have evolved since then. And putting a label really helps this transition. But it's also a recognition abroad. La French Tech is getting noticed abroad. It's getting noticed by investors all around the world. The other team that I want to mention, because I think that they're doing an amazing job and they're really changing the landscape here, is BPI, the Banque Publique d'Investissement. It's a very strange animal. It's a private bank owned by the state. It's actually legally a private bank. And so they're a for-profit organization. Because they're owned by the state, they can take a little bit more risk than others, and they can take more risk in all the entrepreneurs that are in the room today. And I have seen a very notable change in the attitude of the French VC community since BPI is around, about 3 years. They're really doing an amazing job. By the way, they are a shareholder of Scality, and we're really glad to have them as a shareholder. It's an anchor shareholder. We're very happy with every of our shareholders, but this one is very powerful, and it's an anchor shareholder, and gives us they have a lot of trust in our success. And when you have shareholders that trust you, you can go further. Back to the question of trust I was addressing earlier. I'd like to finish with an anecdote, just so you have an idea about share work. And in 2005, at the time I was at the head of Bizanga, and we had money left for 2 weeks. At the time I was going to the US every month from Paris. I was living in Paris. And I had a Class B sales guy taking meetings for me all around the US. And I remember Thursday night I was in Seattle. I just had a shitty meeting with AT&T. It was clear that there was no deal there. And I was supposed to take a red-eye. Red-eye is a night plane, and the plane to go from Seattle to Atlanta is a 4-hour-and-a-half plane, and you arrive the next morning. And then I was supposed to have a meeting with Cox Communication, which is the 4th largest cable operator in the US, and just do the meeting and then fly to Paris for the weekend. And I asked my sales guy, just to understand, that week was crushing. I was tired beyond reason. We didn't have money then, so travel was always the last row of the plane, and with flights where we always stop somewhere. We were paying the cheapest airline, so flights were always delayed. And I remember Thursday night, super tired, I'm thinking, well, maybe I just go straight to Paris. I'm just gone. And I asked my sales guy, so what's this meeting about tomorrow? And he says, oh, we're meeting the same people as usual. We're already to 5 meetings. This is number 6. So we need to continue the process. I know that the company has money for just 2 weeks. I called the airline. I tried to change my ticket. The ticket was so cheap I couldn't change it. I would just lose the ticket. We didn't have money to buy a new ticket. So I did the flight. I went to the meeting. I entered the meeting. There were 10